Japan is an island nation in East Asia comprising a stratovolcanic archipelago extending along the continent's Pacific coast. It lies between 24 degrees to 46 degrees north latitude and from 123 degrees to 146 degrees east longitude. Japan is southeast of the Russian Far East, separated by the Sea of Okhotsk, slightly east of Korea, separated by the Sea of Japan, and east-northeast of China and Taiwan, separated by the East China Sea. The closest neighboring country to Japan is the Russian Federation. The major islands, sometimes called the Home Islands, are Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu. There are 6,852 islands in total, including the Nansei Islands, the Nanpo Islands and islets, with 430 islands being inhabited and others uninhabited. In total, as of 2006, Japan's territory is 377,923.1 square kilometers, of which 374,834 square kilometers is land and 3,091 square kilometers water. Location: Eastern Asia island chain between the North Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Japan, east of the Korean Peninsula. Map references: Asia Oceania. Area total 377,915 square kilometers. Land 364,485 square kilometers. Water 13,430 square kilometers. Notes: includes the Bonin Islands, Daito Islands, Minami Torishima, Okinotoshima, the Ryukyu Islands, and the Volcano Islands. Ownership of the Senkaku Islands and Liancourt Rocks is in dispute. Land boundaries: none. Coastline 29,751 kilometers. Maritime claims: territorial sea 12 nmi, between 3 and 12 nmi in the international straits, La Perouse, Tsugaru Strait, Osumi, and eastern and western channels of the Korea-Tsushima Strait. Exclusive economic zone 200 nmi, contiguous zone 24 nmi. Climate varies from tropical in south to cool temperate in north. Terrain, mostly rugged and mountainous, can easily be compared to Norway, both having about 70% of the land in the mountains. Natural resources: small deposits of coal, oil, iron, and minerals. Major fishing industry. Land use: arable land, 11.65%. Permanent crops, 0.83%, other, 87.52%. Irrigated land, 25,000 square kilometers. Total renewable water resources, 430 cubic kilometers. Freshwater withdrawal, total, 90.04 cubic kilometers. Year per capita, 714.3 cubic meters. Year. Composition and topography. About 72% of Japan is mountainous, with a mountain range running through each of the main islands. Japan's highest mountain is Mount Fuji, with an elevation of 3,776 meters. Japan's forest cover rate is 68.55% since the mountains are heavily forested. The only other developed nations with such a high forest cover percentage are Finland and Sweden. Since there is little level ground, many hills and mountainsides at lower elevations around towns and cities are often cultivated. As Japan is situated in a volcanic zone along the Pacific deeps, frequent low-intensity earth tremors and occasional volcanic activity are felt throughout the islands. Destructive earthquakes occur several times a century. Hot springs are numerous and have been exploited as an economic capital by the leisure industry. The mountainous islands of the Japanese archipelago form a crescent off the eastern coast of Asia. They are separated from the mainland by the Sea of Japan, which historically served as a protective barrier. The country consists of 4 major islands: Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, and Kyushu, with more than 6,500 adjacent smaller islands and islets, including the Izu Islands and Ogasawara Islands in the Nanpo Islands, and the Satsunan Islands, Okinawa Islands, and Sakishima Islands of the Ryukyu Islands. The national territory also includes the volcano islands such as Iwo Jima, located some 1,200 kilometers south of mainland Tokyo, a territorial dispute with Russia, dating from the end of World War II, over the 2 southernmost of the Kuril Islands, Itofu and Kunishiri, and the smaller Shikotan Island and Habomai Islands northeast of Hokkaido remains a sensitive spot in Japanese-Russian relations. Excluding disputed territory, the archipelago covers about 377,000 square kilometers. No point in Japan is more than 150 kilometers from the sea. The 4 major islands are separated by narrow straits and form a natural entity. The Ryukyu Islands curve 970 kilometers southward from Kyushu. The distance between Japan and the Korean peninsula, the nearest point on the Asian continent, is about 200 kilometers at the Korea Strait. Japan has always been linked with the continent through trade routes, stretching in the north towards Siberia, in the west through the Tsushima Islands to the Korean peninsula, and in the south to the ports on the South China coast. The Japanese islands of the summits of mountain ridges uplifted near the outer edge of the continental shelf. About 73% of Japan's area is mountainous, and scattered plains and intermontane basins cover only about 27%. A long chain of mountains runs down the middle of the archipelago, dividing it into 2 halves, the face fronting on the Pacific Ocean, and the back toward the Sea of Japan. On the Pacific side, steep mountains 1,500 to 3,000 meters high, with deep valleys and gorges. Central Japan is marked by the convergence of the 3 mountain chains, the Haida, Kizo, and Akaishi Mountains, that form the Japanese Alps, several of whose peaks are higher than 3,000 meters. The highest point in the Japanese Alps is Mount Kita at 3,193 meters. The highest point in the country is Mount Fuji, a volcano dormant since 1707 that rises to 3,776 meters above sea level in Shizuoka Prefecture. On the Sea of Japan side are plateaus and low mountain districts with altitudes of 500 to 1,500 meters. None of the populated plains or mountain basins are extensive in area. The largest, the Kanto Plain, where Tokyo is situated, covers only 13,000 square kilometers. Other important plains are the Nobi Plain surrounding Nagoya, the Kaine Plain in the Osaka-Kyoto area, the Sendai Plain around the city of Sendai in northeastern Honshu, and the Ishikari Plain on Hokkaido. Many of these plains are along the coast, and their areas have been increased by reclamation throughout recorded history. The small amount of habitable land has prompted significant human modification of the terrain over many centuries. Land was reclaimed from the sea and from river deltas by building dikes and drainage, and rice paddies were built on terraces carved into mountainsides. The process continued in the modern period with extension of shorelines and building of artificial islands for industrial and port development, such as Port Island in Kobe and the new Kansai International Airport in Osaka Bay. Hills and even mountains have been raised to provide flat areas for housing. Rivers are generally steep and swift, and few are suitable for navigation except in the lower reaches. Most rivers are less than 300 kilometers in length, but the rapid flow from the mountains provides a valuable, renewable resource. Hydroelectric power generation. Japan's hydroelectric power potential has been exploited almost to capacity. Seasonal variations in flow have led to extensive development of flood control measures. Most of the rivers are very short. The longest, the Shinano River, which winds through Nagano Prefecture to Niigata Prefecture and flows into the Sea of Japan, is only 367 kilometers long. The largest freshwater lake is Lake Biwa, northeast of Kyoto. Extensive coastal shipping, especially around the Seto Inland Sea, compensates for the lack of navigable rivers. The Pacific coastline south of Tokyo is characterized by long, narrow, gradually shallowing inlets produced by sedimentation, which has created many natural harbors. The Pacific coastline north of Tokyo, the coast of Hokkaido, and the Sea of Japan coast are generally unindented, with few natural harbors. In November 2008, Japan filed a request to expand its claimed continental shelf. In April 2012, the UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf recognized around 310,000 square kilometers of seabed around Okinotorishima, giving Japan priority over access to seabed resources in nearby areas. According to UN Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, the approved expansion is equal to about 82% of Japan's total land area. The People's Republic of China and South Korea have opposed Japan's claim because they view Okinotorishima not as an island, but a group of rocks. Climate. Most regions of Japan, such as much of Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu, belong to the temperate zone with humid subtropical climate characterized by 4 distinct seasons. However, its climate varies from cool humid continental climate in the north such as northern Hokkaido, to warm tropical rainforest climate in the south such as Ishigaki in the Yaeyama Islands. The two primary influences in Japan's climate are a location near the Asian continent and the existence of major oceanic currents. Two major ocean currents affect Japan, the warm Kuroshio current and the cold Oyashio current. The Kuroshio current flows northward on the Pacific side of Japan and warms areas as north as the South Kanto region, a small branch. The Tsushima current flows up the Sea of Japan side. The Oyashio current, which abounds in plankton beneficial to cold-water fish, flows southward along the northern Pacific, cooling adjacent coastal areas. The intersection of these currents at 36 north latitude is a bountiful fishing ground. Its varied geographical features divide Japan into 6 principal climatic zones. Hokkaido. Belonging to the humid continental climate, Hokkaido has long, cold winters and cool summers. Precipitation is not great. Sea of Japan. The northwest seasonal wind in winter gives heavy snowfall, which south of Tohoku mostly melts before the beginning of spring. In summer it is a little less rainy than the Pacific area but sometimes experiences extreme high temperatures due to the Föhn wind phenomenon. Central Highland, a typical inland climate, gives large temperature variations between summers and winters and between days and nights. Precipitation is lower than on the coast due to rain-shadow effects. Seto Inland Sea. The mountains in the Chugoku and Shikoku regions block the seasonal winds and bring mild climate and many fine days throughout the year. Pacific Ocean. The climate varies greatly between the north and the south, but generally winters are significantly milder and sunnier than those of the side that faces the Sea of Japan. Summers are hot and humid due to the southeast seasonal wind. Precipitation is very heavy in the south, and heavy in the summer in the north. The climate of the Ogasawara island chain in the Pacific Ocean ranges from a humid subtropical climate to tropical savanna climate with temperatures being warm to hot all year round. Ryukyu Islands. The climate of these islands ranges from humid subtropical climate in the north to tropical rainforest climate in the south with warm winters and hot summers. Precipitation is very high, and is especially affected by the rainy season and typhoons. Japan is generally a rainy country with high humidity. Because of its wide range of latitude, seasonal winds and different types of ocean currents, Japan has a variety of climates, with a latitude range of the inhabited islands from 24 degrees to 46 degrees north, which is comparable to the range between Nova Scotia and the Bahamas in the east coast of North America. Tokyo is at about 35 degrees north latitude, comparable to that of Tehran, Athens, or Las Vegas. Regional climatic variations range from humid continental in the northern island of Hokkaido extending down through northern Japan to the central highland, then blending with and eventually changing to a humid subtropical climate on the Pacific coast and ultimately reaching tropical rainforest climate on the Yaeyama Islands of the Ryukyu Islands. Climate also varies dramatically with altitude and with location on the Pacific Ocean or on the Sea of Japan. Northern Japan has warm summers but long, cold winters with heavy snow. Central Japan, in its elevated position, has hot, humid summers and moderate to short winters with some areas having very heavy snow. And southwestern Japan has long, hot, humid summers and mild winters. The generally humid, temperate climate exhibits marked seasonal variations such as the blooming of the spring cherry blossoms, the calls of the summer cicada and fall foliage colors that are celebrated in art and literature. The climate from June to September is marked by hot wet weather brought by tropical air flows from the Pacific Ocean and Southeast Asia. These airflows are full of moisture and deposit substantial amounts of rain when they reach land. There is a marked rainy season, beginning in early June and continuing for about a month. It is followed by hot, sticky weather. 5 or 6 typhoons pass over or near Japan every year from early August to early October, sometimes resulting in significant damage. Annual precipitation averages between 1,000 and 2,500 millimeters except for the areas such as Kii Peninsula and Yakushima Island, which is Japan's wettest place, with the annual precipitation being one of the world's highest at 4,000 to 10,000 millimeters. Maximum precipitation, like the rest of East Asia, occurs in the summer months except on the Sea of Japan coast where strong northerly winds produce a maximum in late autumn and early winter, except for a few sheltered inland valleys during December and January. Precipitation in Japan is above 25 millimeters of rainfall equivalent in all months of the year, and in the wettest coastal areas it is above 100 millimeters per month throughout the year. In winter, the Siberian high develops over the Eurasian land mass and the Aleutian low develops over the northern Pacific Ocean. The result is a flow of cold air southeastward across Japan that brings freezing temperatures and heavy snowfalls to the central mountain ranges, facing the Sea of Japan, but clear skies to areas fronting on the Pacific. Mid-June to mid-July is generally the rainy season in Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu, excluding Hokkaido since the seasonal rain front of Baiyu-Zansun dissipates in northern Honshu before reaching Hokkaido. In Okinawa, the rainy season starts early in May and continues until mid-June. Unlike the rainy season in mainland Japan, it rains neither every day nor all day long during the rainy season in Okinawa. Between July and October, typhoons, grown from tropical depressions generated near the equator, can attack Japan with furious rainstorms. The warmest winter temperatures are found in the Nanpo and Bonan Islands, which enjoy a tropical climate due to the combination of latitude latitude, distance from the Asian mainland, and warming effect of winds from the Kuroshio, as well as the volcano islands. The coolest summer temperatures are found on the northeastern coast of Hokkaido in Kushiro and Nemuro sub-prefectures. Sunshine, in accordance with Japan's uniformly heavy rainfall, is generally modest in quantity, though no part of Japan receives the consistently gloomy fogs that envelope the Sichuan Basin at Taipei. Amounts range from about 6 hours per day in the inland seacoast and sheltered parts of the Pacific coast and Kanto Plain to 4 hours per day on the Sea of Japan coast of Hokkaido. In December there is a very pronounced sunshine gradient between the Sea of Japan and Pacific coasts, as the former side can receive less than 30 hours and the Pacific side as much as 180 hours. In summer, however, sunshine hours are lowest on exposed parts of the Pacific coast where fogs from the Oishio Current create persistent cloud cover similar to that found on the Kuril Islands and Sakhalin. As an island nation, Japan has the 6th longest coastline in the world. A few prefectures are landlocked: Gunma, Tochigi, Saitama, Nagano, Yamanashi, Gifu, Shiga, and Nara. As Mount Fuji and the coastal Japanese Alps provide a rain shadow, Nagano and Yamanashi prefectures receive the least precipitation in Honshu, though this still exceeds 900 mm annually. A similar effect is found in Hokkaido, where Okhotsk sub-prefecture receives as little as 750 mm per year. All other prefectures have coasts on the Pacific Ocean. Sea of Japan, set to inland sea, have a body of salt water connected to them. Two prefectures, Hokkaido and Okinawa, are composed entirely of islands. The hottest temperature ever measured in Japan, 41.0 degrees Celsius, occurred in Shimanta, Kochi on August 12, 2013. Environmental issues. Environment. Current issues. In the 2006 Environment Annual Report, the Ministry of Environment reported that current major issues are global warming and preservation of the ozone layer, conservation of the atmospheric environment, water and soil, waste management and recycling, measures for chemical substances, conservation of the natural environment and the participation in the international cooperation. Environment. International agreements. Party 2. Antarctic Environmental Protocol, Antarctic Treaty, Biodiversity, Climate Change, Desertification, Endangered Species, Environmental Modification, Hazardous Wastes, Law of the Sea, Marine Dumping, Ozone Layer Protection, Ship Pollution, Tropical Timber 83, Tropical Timber 94, Wetlands, Whaling signed and ratified, Climate Change, Kyoto Protocol, Natural Hazards. 10% of the world's active volcanoes, 40 in the early 1990s, are found in Japan, which lies in a zone of extreme crustal instability. As many as 1,500 earthquakes are recorded yearly, and magnitudes of 4 to 7 are common. Minor tremors occur almost daily in one part of the country or another, causing slight shaking of buildings. Major earthquakes occur infrequently. The most famous in the 20th century was the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, in which 130,000 people died. Undersea earthquakes also exposed the Japanese coastline to danger from tsunamis and tidal waves. On March 11, 2011, Japan was subject to a devastating magnitude 9.0 earthquake and a massive tsunami as a result. The March 11th quake was the largest ever recorded in Japan and is the world's fourth largest earthquake to strike since 1900, according to the U.S. Geological Service. It struck offshore about 371 kilometers northeast of Tokyo and 130 kilometers east of the city of Sendai, and created a massive tsunami that devastated devastated Japan's northeastern coastal areas. At least 100 aftershocks registering a 6.0 magnitude or higher have followed the main temblor. At least 15,000 people died as a result. Japan has become a world leader in research on causes and prediction of earthquakes. The development of advanced technology has permitted the construction of skyscrapers even in earthquake-prone areas. Extensive civil defense efforts focus on training in protection against earthquakes, in particular against accompanying fire, which represents the greatest danger. Another common hazard are several typhoons that reach Japan from the Pacific every year and heavy snowfall during winter in the snow country regions, causing landslides, flooding, and avalanches. Regions. Japan is informally divided into 8 regions. Each contains several prefectures, except the Hokkaido region, which covers only Hokkaido Prefecture. The region is not an official administrative unit but has been traditionally used as the regional division of Japan in a number of contexts. For example, maps and geography textbooks divide Japan into the 8 regions. Weather reports usually give the weather by region, and many businesses and institutions use the home region as part of the name. While Japan has 8 high courts, their jurisdictions do not correspond to the 8 regions. Extreme points. This is a list of the extreme points of Japan, the points that are farther north, south, east or west than any other location. Japan northernmost point Bantenjima, Joakanai, Hokkaido 45 degrees 31 minutes 35 seconds north, 141 degrees 55:09 including land currently disputed with Russia. Cape Kamuiwaka, Itorfu 45 degrees 33 N, 148 degrees 45 E. Southernmost point, Okinotoshima 20 degrees 25 N, 136 degrees 04 E. Westernmost point, Yonaguni 24 degrees 27 N, 122 degrees 59 E. Easternmost point, Minami Torishima 24 degrees 18 N, 153 degrees 58 E. Japan northernmost point, Cape Soya, Joakanai, Hokkaido 45 degrees 31 N, 141 degrees 56 E. Southernmost point, Cape Sata on Osumi Peninsula, Minami Osumi, Kagoshima 30 degrees 59 N, 130 degrees 39 E. Westernmost point, Kosakibana, Sasebo, Nagasaki 33 degrees 13 N, 129 degrees 33 E. Easternmost point, Cape Nosapu, Nemuro, Hokkaido 43 degrees 22 N, 145 degrees 49 E. Elevation extremes. Lowest point, Hashirigata -4 meters. Highest point, Mount Fuji 3,776 meters. Antipodes. The only part of Japan with antipodes over land of the Ryukyu Islands, though the islands off the western coast of Kyushu are close. The northernmost antipodal island in the Ryukyu Island chain, Nakanoshima, is opposite the Brazilian coast, near Capão da Canoa. The other islands south to the Straits of Okinawa correspond to southern Brazil, with Gadger Island being opposite the outskirts of Santo Antonio da Patrulha, Takarajima with Jua, Amami Oshima covering the villages of Karasinho and Fazenda Joao Ganosa, Okinawa with Palmas, Parana, the Kerama Islands with Pato Branco, Tonaki Island with São Lourenço do Oeste, and Kuma Palm Island corresponding to Palma Sola. The main Daito Islands correspond to near Garachiba, with Oki-Daito Island near Apirai. The Sakishima Islands beyond the straits are antipodal to Paraguay, from the Brazilian border almost to Asuncion, with Ishigaki overlapping San Isidro de Curaguati, and the uninhabited Senkaku Islands surrounding Villarica.